All right, YouTube. Welcome back. This is Appalachian ADV Rider, and this is the final video of my 2024 knife collection video. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you're enjoying this. And let's get right to this. We got some business to take care of. Right here is what we got is a Demko 20 AD or 20.5 AD. This is at the time, I think it was like a Knife World exclusive, titanium scales to it. Love this shark lock. This was a game changer for me. I like that knife so much that I got a carbon fiber edition, and I think this is also was an exclusive at the time to the same retailer. And then you got the AD20. This is a big boy version of that knife in 3V steel. It is an amazing knife. It's one of my favorite knives of all time. Great ergonomics, just a real beefy knife. Great lockup. I've never done a review on that knife yet. And then here you'll see my ZT collection. So ZT does this thing where they just name everything by numbers. So I'm gonna have to look each one of these guys up. This is a assisted opening knife in a tiger stripe. It's my only tiger stripe knife. And it is the ZT0305 TS, tiger stripe. Great knife. It's got a recurve to it. I just don't like the peel plied texture to it. It tears up your pocket. So I don't carry this knife a whole lot. I wish they had a different scale to it, but it is what it is. All right, this is another ZT. What is it called? It is the ZT 0560. It is a ZT version of the Hinderer XM24. So it's a big knife. It's made in LMAX. There was a controversy around the heat treat that ZT was doing on the LMAX, but this is just a fantastic knife as far as I'm concerned. It's got some hot spots to it. It's okay, don't get me wrong, but this is from the heyday of ZT. So you'll see a lot of these knives are big, and this is what I love about. This is what made me fall in love with the company ZT. Here is another Hinderer inspired design. It's inspired by the XM18. This was at one point considered better than the XM18. The action was better, the steel was better, everything was better. This is a ZT, I hate that they number these things, 0562 titanium in 20 CV. So there you go. Great knife. I think this, okay, and it's got a double clutch. I can't stand that. This is the last big ZT that I purchased. In terms of this is the knife size is big. It is a ZT0308. It's got an aftermarket Mike Carter scale to it. It's a great knife. It's just a big knife. I love a big honking knife. There you go. Let's stick with ZT for the moment. So this is the last ZT that I purchased. I don't know why I purchased it. It is a assisted opening knife also. It's a ZT 0357 in 20 CV. I mean, I know why I purchased it. I purchased it to carry it in my motorcycle jacket in case it rains. But I never carried it. I don't think I've ever carried this knife. It's a very early ZT. The action on this thing kind of sucks. It's got a really weak detent. It's easy to fail this knife, but it's big and honking. It's got a beautiful recurve to it. It's in 154 cm steel, and it's a ZT 0200. I mean, it's a cool knife. I mean, it's a interesting knife. Oh, and yeah, the detent on this thing sucks, like I said. But I'm afraid to carry it because it just can open up in your pocket, and I just don't want to slice my hand open. I've done that once with the McNeves knives, and I'm not going to do it again. Here is another ZT. This is a Hinderer inspired design. It's inspired after the Eclipse. This is the 0393 GLCF. So this is glow in the dark scales, which is ridiculous. I don't really care because I stick it in my pocket, but I'm not sure who was thinking of doing that and how cool it would be, but somebody thought of that, and there you go. So you're watching it. This is a Harpoon Spanto. It's a great design knife, and it's also in 20 CV. I think I already said that. I like this knife, but when you can own a Hinderer Eclipse, what's the point of this knife? Maybe to save a buck or two. I'm not sure. This is a ZT0909, and it's a Les George inspired design. Was a custom called the Talos, and now he's released that knife as a production knife. But this is many, many, many years before that. ZT made a version of that production of that custom knife. It's a great knife, fits great in the hand. It's pretty heavy. I really like this knife. I only carried it a couple of times. I haven't really carried it a bunch. I just got a lot of knives, right? So it's hard. Now this knife here, I've carried this knife a bunch. There's something about this knife that I really, really like. This is the ZT0801. It's a Rexford design knife in L-Max, but I just like this handle and the way it feels in my hand. It is an amazing action, an amazing feel. It's got a great tip. It's super sharp. This is a great knife. I really enjoy this knife. This is, I'm not going to call it a sprint run because ZT doesn't really have sprint runs as far as I'm concerned, but this is like a special edition of this knife. It is I can barely see, I'm sorry. What is it? ZT0456. It's titanium and blue. It's an M4 steel, coated steel. I like the way this feels in my hand. It reminds me of like an egg almost, and it's got a great ergonomics in it. The pocket clip is, a little annoying. It's kind of there. It's a sheep's foot kind of Warncliffe shape to it. It's a great EDC knife, and it's not too large, and I love the shape of this handle. So great knife here. This knife here gets critically acclaimed. Let's open it up. It is a ZT0551. It's a Hinderer design knife. I'm not really sure what it's kind of copying. It might be before my time, really. This is an older knife, but it is a real chunky knife. It's real thick, real stout. Just a great knife. I've carried this several times, but not really sure what else to say about it. It's a good knife. And here's another Les George design knife. It kind of reminds me of an Arabian style blade to it. This is a ZT0920. It's got a recurve to it. It's in 20 CV. Super sharp. It's a great handle to it. It's thin but rounded. It's contoured scale. It's a great knife. It doesn't really do great in the pocket. It's a pocket hog. All right, now switching back here. This is my Strider knife collection. So this is a brand new one. I have a video on this one. I haven't released it yet. It's the Pert TE. It's a titanium knife. It's got a Tonto blade to it. It's small, but it has an amazing ergonomics. And this thing just melts in my hand, and everything's chamfered. It's a beautiful knife. It's just small and it's expensive. So I'm not sure I would recommend it to anyone, especially if you're trying to save some money. But so that's one. This is the Strider SNG. This is probably, I think, my favorite Strider. This shape, this size knife. It's chamfered. It's just great. It's in G10. It's a Magna Cut. It's a great knife. I love that knife. Here's the SMF. This is a big knife. It's got a PVD coat to it. The edges are a little more squared off than the SNG, but it's a great knife. I like it. So here's a gentleman's knife. This is a Tactile Knife Company Rockwall. This is the first Magna Cut. I think it's the first Magna Cut knife I ever have. I've carried this a whole bunch. So I work in the office. This is a great knife to stick in your dress pants and just kind of disappears. It's nice and light. This is a Nick Nichols Guppy knife. I'm one of the earlier adopters to this knife. This is a great blade shape. It's a medium-sized knife. I just like this little ramp here. It's a Magna Cut. This came in like the screws were a little loose, and the pivot. This is just a great size knife. It kind of reminds me of like a pirate's knife, pirate shape to it. It's got like a bone shape to it. And I don't know what about the blade that makes me think this is a pirate knife, but it's got pretty good ergonomics. What really sucks about this knife is the opening here. It's really difficult to close this knife. And it's not a cheap knife. This is a TRM Atom. It's all titanium. It's a really slicey knife. It's real thin blade stock. It's a big knife, but really thin. It's beautiful. I love the scales on this thing. This company is an amazing company. Really nice people. And this is a quality knife. It's made in a 20 CV steel. Here is a Maxace knife. This is the Maxace Black Mirror in M390. It's got a great opening here to get to the frame lock. Got good action. It feels a little cheap, let's say, and the knife is cheap, but there's nothing, cheap about it in terms of material. It's titanium and a super steel. I accidentally washed this knife one time, and I left it in my clothing, and I washed it, and there's not a bit of rust on this knife. Nothing ever happened to the action. It's a great knife. It's just an inexpensive knife. I mean, to think an American company would never be able to produce this knife for $150. I think at the time this was $150. So I can't really complain. Oh, I have one more ZT. This is a Les George designed knife, or a copy of a Les George designed knife. And that is a 0900 in S35VN. It's a great little knife. This actually is better than the Les George knife itself. Like, the detent on this knife is so much better. It's hard to fail the flicking. The Les George version of this knife, the detent on it is just horrible. And second to last but not least, is this. This is a Herman Knives. I can't pronounce the name of it. I call it the Batman knife. It's like the Vesperilio or something like that. I really dislike this knife. This is a very, very expensive knife. And I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of it. It never really spoke to me. It is a blade, really thin blade stock. So you would think it would be slicey, and I guess it is, but I don't know. There's something about this knife I don't really like. I don't believe I have ever carried it other than the first day that I owned it. It's a highly praised knife that I just couldn't give two things about it. And lastly, I think I covered this one in the video, but I'm going to end it on this knife here. This is my old timer, 51 OT. This is a Skinner knife blade. It's a carbon steel. We don't know what... I have no clue what steel it's in, but I'm sure it's a carbon steel. This is back in the day when, before they had pocket clips on knives. I purchased this in the late 70s. This thing has seen a lot of wear and tear. I've gone camping with it. I've carried it in my pocket through college, through high school. I'd say high school, but I'm not even sure if I carried it in high school. But I purchased it when I was in high school. And I certainly carried it through college, and since then. It's a lockback knife, which is not a real popular locking mechanism nowadays. It's a pin construction. But I think I saw this knife on YouTube, and somebody was talking, reviewing it and talking about like they found this knife almost like in an archaeological dig, and it was so old. And I thought, wow, I got that knife, and so I dug it out, and it got me back interested in the knives. All right, well, I sound a little sick, so pardon me if I am sick, but I'm doing this video anyway before the end of the year. Thank you for joining me throughout this adventure of mine. I think I've been doing this channel for about 2 years now, and I really enjoy interacting with y'all. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a thumbs up on the video. And I'll see you again. There's, more life left in me, and 2025 should be a good year for knives and me. All right, thanks again, and I'll see y'all later.